Thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to welcome all of you to the 37th meeting of this Rotary year 2020-2021. I'm the club president, Sami Malaki. We shall start the evening with the Rotary Grace, which will be led by Charter President Shiro Sundwa. Okay, the president is not available. I shall ask Retractor Winnie to assist us with the Rotary Grace.
May I assist?
Yes, please. Thank you.
O Lord and giver of all good, we thank thee for our daily food. May Rotary friends and Rotary ways help us to serve thee all our days. Amen.
Thank you very much, Past President Henry. Next, she'll have the loyal toast. This is by the president. So if you have a glass, please charge it. If not, place your right hand over your heart. To His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya. To the President.
To the President.
Next, we shall have the 4-way test by Retractor Yvonne Ngonga. Yvonne?
Hi, Malaki. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
The 4-way test of the things you think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to
all constant? Will it build goodwill and better
friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you, Yvonne. So over to the announcements. I shall go about them in reverse. So I shall ask our treasurer, Keshi, to go ahead and start us off.
Good evening, fellow Rotarians, directors, and guests. It's a lovely Monday, and good to see all of you here. This announcement is for the members of the club. For the last club assembly, we passed that we can be able to bill for the next Rotary year in advance. So I'll be sending bills at the end of this month. This is just an announcement in preparation so that you can be aware and be on the lookout for the email that will come to you. And also for those that have not cleared the subs for the second half of the year, kindly, please, let's do so. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Treasurer Keshi. Thank you for all the hard work that you put in to ensure that our club is financially sound. Next, we shall move to the inductions. We shall be having inductions for new members. We are aiming to have it at the end of this month. As soon as we can meet as a group, we'll do it. Details for this will follow. If you have any persons you're sponsoring or your potential inductee, please reach out to me or reach out to our membership director-elect, Njoki Ndungu. Thank you. The other item is on the club handover. We had the official handover last weekend. So it was a request by DGE Alex to have all presidents hand over on the same day that the district hands over. So we did it. It was symbolic. Thank you very, very much, incoming President Wilson, for facilitating it. And like I said on that day and on the official group, that I commit to give you full support to ensure a smooth transition and support as your club trainer during your year as president of the club. So we shall move to the introduction of the guest speaker. And for this, I shall ask President Innocent of Rotary Club of UN Afia.
Thank you very much, President Malaki. So this evening, I have the rare honor of introducing our guest today. That is Dr. Mark Ndungu Njoroge. Dr. Mark came into this world very small. And now he's a current registrar at the Kenyatta National Hospital, internal medicine resident. He's forced to know much about COVID by virtue of the fact that he is in internal medicine. Besides that, he runs as the current new generations director for a great club, and we couldn't help but attend this meeting to see one of our own deliver this talk during this fellowship. So Mark occasionally enjoys corny jokes. I'm sure he'll be delivering some in the course of this talk. And without further ado, I'd want everyone to join me in welcoming Dr. Mark Ndungu Njoroge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Innocent, for that introduction. I'm very happy for this honor. Thank you, President Malaki. So good evening, fellow Rotarians, Rotaractors, and guests. Today, I'm joined by my wife, Dr. Kibe. So feel free to throw all the hard questions. I have help today. So today I was tasked with the duty to have a talk on the COVID vaccine. And I think I'll share a screen. I have a few slides to share. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, so today's talk is on COVID-19 vaccine. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of whispers. So today we'll try and demystify some of those things we've been hearing in the internet. I'll have to disappoint President Innocent and members of UN Afia. Today I will not be technical. You'll not hear me. I'll try and avoid medical terms so that everyone is on board. So just to remind ourselves about COVID-19 before we go to the vaccine, we need to remind ourselves that it was first reported in Wuhan in China, the tail end of 2019. And what causes COVID-19? We know it's SARS-CoV-2. What does it stand for? This is a severe acute respiratory syndrome, Corona 2. And it was called 2 because there was already a SARS outbreak. So this was very similar to the first SARS, the virus itself. So it was named CoV-2. Corona is just part of the chest. Transmission, I know a lot has been in the media trying to educate people on transmission and how to avoid infections. So yes, it's via droplets. So when someone coughs, so the droplets, you inhale the droplets, or when the droplets land on surfaces and someone comes into contact with these infected surfaces and they then touch their face, especially the nose or the mouth, then you get infected with coronavirus. It was just a brief reminder. We remind ourselves. So what is a vaccine? We can start by defining it. So vaccines are inventions that were invented by scientists, and their work is to prevent disease. And these diseases can be dangerous or even deadly. So how they work is by using your own body's natural defense to safely develop protection against a specific disease. So it helps your immune system to produce antibodies. Antibodies are like soldiers. So these soldiers, their work is to fight off the infection or the illness. The way you can develop these antibodies or these soldiers is either by getting the vaccine or going through the illness itself. So vaccines to date have been in two forms, either killed or inactivated, or the bug or the germ itself has been weakened. So after you get vaccinated, you get protection from the specific disease that you have been vaccinated against. And you get this protection without having to suffer the disease cause itself. So there are various ways of getting these vaccinations. We get it through injections like the tetanus vaccine, we get it into our muscles, or even the COVID vaccine. You can get it orally by mouth, like the polio vaccine. Sometimes we have it sprayed into the nose, like the flu vaccine. Some flu vaccines comes as nasal sprays. But more specifically, looking into COVID-19 vaccines, we have several right now that are available in the market. This table just kind of classifies them according to how they work. So if you look at the left column, we have four groups. And within these groups, you can see some familiar names like Pfizer, Moderna, the first row. The second row, you can see familiar names like AstraZeneca, CanSino, you can see Johnson & Johnson. The Gamalenia is Sputnik 5. On the third row, you can see familiar names like Sinovac, that's the one in China, and also Sinopharm. Those are China, the Chinese vaccines. On the last row, we have the Novavax. This is a new vaccine being developed in the US. But all these are four different groups of the current available vaccines. So we've been hearing RNA, we've been hearing viral vector. Whole viruses and protein subunits are not new. They've been there in the market. So let me go to the next slide and just try and expound on that so that it makes sense. So the four groups are the ones that are displayed right now on the screen. So we have, the first group was the RNA, and these are vaccines that contain a synthetic version of part of the COVID-19. So they just take part of the virus, they take its genetic makeup, and that genetic makeup is then delivered as a vaccine into your body. Your body then reads that genetic makeup of the virus and produces something similar to a virus or part of the virus. So when this product is then expressed inside our bodies perceive that as an infection, and they produce now the antibodies or the soldiers that we mentioned. So that in the event in the future you get a real infection of COVID-19, the same products that will be found in that vaccine or in the virus itself, the body will be ready and will recognize that is COVID and it will fight it. And there I mentioned we had Moderna and Pfizer. The first one is the viral vector. This is where the AstraZeneca vaccine falls in. This is the vaccine that we have in the country. The science is almost the same, but now how they deliver that genetic material of the COVID-19 is what makes it a bit different. So for the AstraZeneca, they use a virus, adenovirus. This is just a virus that causes the common flus and all that. And they use a weakened version and they incorporate the genetic makeup of COVID. So this is then delivered into your body as a vaccine, and the body, your cells use this genetic material to produce parts of the virus. the body then assumes there's an infection, and if you ever get another infection, a real infection by COVID, the body already identifies those parts of the COVID, and it will fight the infection as a whole. The last two on the far right, whole virus and protein subunits are not new in the market. Whole virus means they just get the whole virus, they weaken it, they inject it into your body, and the body recognizes it and mounts a response, and also makes the soldiers or the antibodies for future protection. Protein subunits, they just use a piece of the COVID-19. They just like pinch off part of the virus, they inject it into your body, and you mount a response, you form antibodies. So going back to our former slide, like I said, the last two are not new. Like you can see on the far right, the yellow column, they are used in hepatitis A vaccines. They have been used in cervical cancer vaccines, the HPV vaccine. And then the protein subunit has been used in hepatitis B. So the first two are what are new. And you can see even Ebola is being, the Ebola vaccine is using the new technology. So these vaccines are suitable for even people who have weakened immunity. And you can also see that all of them require 2 doses, apart from the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. In terms of storage, we know that the Moderna and the Pfizer require really low temperatures. However, what we have in the market, AstraZeneca, can be stored in a normal fridge. It requires 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, and it will be viable, it will be okay. Moving on, this table I want to highlight the fourth column on the effectiveness of these drugs, of these vaccines. There was a lot of discussion on why we are getting a weaker vaccine, because AstraZeneca had an efficacy of 67% on average. Of importance is that these numbers, they really don't, it would be unfair to focus on these numbers, because all of the vaccines give at least 90% protection against severe disease. Severe disease meaning COVID that will make you admitted or even end up in HD or even ICU. So how they came up with these numbers was during the studies. And as you know, like how you carry out your study will give you different results. So Moderna was mainly done in the US, also Pfizer, Oxford, the AstraZeneca was done in Brazil and the UK. Sputnik was done in Russia. Johnson & Johnson was done in South Africa. It was done in Brazil and also in the US. So you might unfairly judge a vaccine like Johnson & Johnson, which is at 67, but you note that it was tested in populations that already had the variant form of COVID. So that is something to think about. Next is what are the benefits of getting the COVID-19 vaccine? So one, it will get, like we mentioned, it will keep you away from hospital. Even if you get COVID, you'll get the mild form of COVID and you'll be at home isolating. The other thing is that, like I've mentioned, all the vaccines will have been effective in protecting someone from the severe form of COVID. The more people get vaccinated, the faster we'll go back to our normal lives. And I know this term herd immunity has been thrown around. So herd immunity meaning we need to get to a point where majority of the population has been vaccinated, such that if a few get COVID, it will just be within them. It will not spread. However, we are getting a challenge because the more COVID is spreading, the more it's mutating. And some of the vaccines already in the market are not so protective against these new variants. So we need to vaccinate fast so that the virus stops spreading. And once it stops spreading, it also stops mutating. So in the meantime, we still need to combine the vaccination and all the CDC recommendations so that we protect ourselves, because like we said, it protects you from severe disease, does not protect you entirely, especially if you've just had the first dose. from the infection itself. And it will also now lead us to get into herd immunity. So how do we know that the vaccine we have already in the market is safe? There were many concerns that this vaccine came in very fast. There were concerns that some shortcuts might have been taken. And this was the reason, because as you see in the illustration, a vaccine can take up to, if you add all these years at the x-axis, they can be 15 years or even 20 years, because there's a lot of research, preclinical development to all the phases of clinical trials, then filing for approvals, and then doing the manufacturing and distribution, and even doing post-marketing surveillance. So this tedious process takes time. And that is why people are wondering, is it safe now that it took such a short time to develop? However, we have checks and balances that make sure our vaccine is safe. So for a vaccine to be approved, it has like I mentioned, the preclinical trials where you use mice, for example. And in this phase, you want to see, is this vaccine safe? The safety efficacy of it. If you see mice dying and having very bad side effects, then you stop the study. Then once you're done with the preclinical development and your studies on animals, then you go to the human trials. And the human trials are divided into 3, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So phase 1, you will generally recruit 100 people or less. Then you would give them the vaccine, and your target is to monitor side effects on human beings. And then you want to see which dosage works. The maximum dose where the side effects are too much, and the minimum dose where the antibodies produced are not, or the soldiers produced are not enough. So once you pass this stage, you go to the second stage of the human trials, phase 2. And this, you want to let me just add, in the first phase, you want only healthy human beings, so that if there are side effects, you cannot blame any other conditions they might have. So when you go in the second phase, you want a representation of the population. So you get people of different, for example, for the COVID, you agree on an age, 18 and above, but then you get different races, people with different physical build, people with comorbids, maybe they have diabetes or hypertension, and also you get healthy people. And then in this stage, you want to still monitor the side effects. You still want to see the dosage that you calculated in the first phase, is it effective in the population? And once you get this data, then you can move on to the third and final stage of human trials before approval, where you give 1,000+. In the COVID development, many people are willing and they were volunteering to be subjects for trial. So, for example, Moderna had 43,000 people. Pfizer also had 37,000, I think. AstraZeneca had 12,000 individuals who volunteered. So in this, you want to now still check for side effects and also its efficacy, if it's the dosage you calculated still is effective in the larger population. There are still other safety checks before we say a vaccine is safe, because once you do the first stage of human preclinical animal, then you go into human trials, the 3 stages I've mentioned. You then submit all your data and findings to bodies that are there to make sure drugs and vaccines are safe for human consumption. We have different bodies. We have CDC, FDA, different regions have different bodies. This is all just to make sure this vaccine is safe for use. So this is just to highlight how come we were able to get the vaccine in such a short period, as opposed to waiting for years. So at the third stage, if you see the first illustration is the COVID development. Then the bottom example is a traditional timeline that would take almost 15 to 20 years. So what happened in COVID development, they merged some of the stages. For example, when they were doing the final, the testing in the human phase, the third phase of human testing, they already went into manufacturing, meaning that before approval, we had millions of vaccines waiting distribution, and for for further studies in the larger population. So that saved a lot of time, such that once the FDAs and all the other bodies approved, there was the mass distribution of the vaccine. That's how we saved time. Then, can I get COVID from the vaccine itself? So the answer is no, because the vaccine does not contain the live virus that causes COVID-19. This means that you can't catch COVID-19 from the vaccine. However, we have had situations in the news where say so-and-so was vaccinated and now has the COVID, but this will just be a coincidence, because you can get COVID just prior to vaccination or slightly a few days after the vaccination. But you cannot get COVID from the vaccine itself. So do the COVID-19 vaccines have any side effects? Yes, they do. But like any other vaccine, they are very rare, and if they're there, they are mild symptoms. So it is possible that some people may have the side effects. And this is a normal sign that your body is responding to the vaccine, and it's building immunity, it's building those soldiers, it's building memory cells. So some of these side effects can affect your ability to do your daily activities, but they should go away in a few days. My personal experience was that I just had symptoms for a day, and after that I was good. So for the COVID vaccine, the common side effects that have been documented include tiredness, headaches, you can have pains at the joints, and also muscles, pain at the injection sites. Some have reported chills and fever, and you can also have nausea and vomiting, and sometimes abdominal cramping. Dizziness has also been reported. So these slides, I want to focus on what I've highlighted at the bottom, and it's what each vaccine, what protection it confers in terms of timelines. So if you look at the second row, those were the trial effectiveness. That was the data collected during the trials here. So when you see like AstraZeneca has a 62% efficacy, this was data collected 14 days after the second dose. So all those who were in the study, after they got the second dose, they were, and you must note for AstraZeneca, for example, at the 14th day of all those who were under the study, they were called in and a PCR was done. It didn't matter if they had symptoms or not. For Pfizer, they did that. They had a 95% efficacy during the trials. However, for Pfizer and Moderna, they called in people at the 28th day for Pfizer and the 14th day for Moderna and asked them if they had symptoms. So anyone who had symptoms was called in and PCR was done, unlike for AstraZeneca where they sampled everyone. Johnson & Johnson, they also called in anyone who had symptoms. So in terms of protection for the AstraZeneca, which you have in the market, it is 15 days after the second shot where you have protection. Some is 22 days after the first. For Pfizer and Moderna, which in the US, so Pfizer is 14 days after the second shot, and some it's 12 days after the first shot. For Moderna, it's 14 days after the second shot, some 14 days after the first. For Johnson & Johnson, which is one shot, it's 14 days after the shot. So it's important to remember this because we don't know what the government is because we heard the government is in talks with these manufacturers. So any of these can land in Kenya to so as to boost what AstraZeneca is doing. Should someone with allergies get the COVID-19 vaccine? There are concerns about people who have allergies to eggs, gelatin, and latex. However, the vaccines do not contain any of this, and so people with allergies to these things are safe with the vaccine. However, if you have a history of maybe a severe allergic reaction to other things like peanut butter, you should discuss with your doctor before you get the COVID vaccine. Of note is that you should not get the COVID-19 vaccine if you have a history of severe allergic reactions to any ingredients in the vaccine. This will be easy to know if, for example, if you've ever had a severe reaction, a bad reaction to any other vaccine, because these vaccines usually have additives. They have preservatives, they have other chemicals that help it work better. So if you've ever reacted, and most of these chemicals cut across, so if you've ever reacted to a vaccine prior, then you should be careful before you get the COVID-19 vaccine. For our ladies who want to have a baby one day, is it safe for them to get COVID-19 vaccine? The answer is yes. So if you're planning to get a baby soon or in the near future, you should get the vaccine. So there's no evidence that even the vaccine has fertility problems of date. And you know, almost over 80 million people have been vaccinated so far. So if there was any issue, it will have been captured by now. Should someone who is pregnant or breastfeeding get a COVID-19 vaccine? The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, which is a body that really most countries and regions look up to, has recommended that the vaccine be offered to pregnant and breastfeeding individuals. Getting sick with COVID-19 during pregnancy can increase the risk of severe illness of the COVID and might also increase a risk of premature birth happening. Are COVID-19 vaccines safe for children? All tests that were done by these manufacturers, other than Pfizer, capped the age at 18 years. Pfizer capped theirs at 16 and above. So right now, there's no data to say that younger than 16 years should get the vaccine or it's safe for them. So we just keep off. However, I know Pfizer and Moderna in the last stages of being authorized to vaccinate 12 years and above. The reason is, even as we vaccinate the other population, and as we are trying to get to herd immunity, kids they can transmit the virus. For them, it will not affect them as it would the older generation, but they would still spread it and bring it home and all that. So they still work to make sure that all age groups are vaccinatable. Will a COVID-19 vaccine change my DNA? So there was a lot of rumors because as we noted, the vaccine is new. It's new technology where they're using the virus genetics and then using our cells in the body to code that genetic material into a protein that the body will then think is an infection. So people thought us using our DNA to manufacture a protein that's from a virus was us messing with our DNA and our genomics. So there was a lot of rumors and people saying it would mess with our DNA. And once we mess with our DNA in the future, our cells or our body will produce cancerous cells or cancerous tumors. So there was a lot of speculation, but there's no scientific data to back any of that. So no, COVID-19 vaccines do not change or interact with your DNA in any given way. So they just teach your immune system how to fight against a specific virus, which is now COVID-19. But for it to do its job, the COVID-19 vaccines, they don't need to go into the nucleus, like I've stated, where our DNA is kept. So interaction is not there. So people, you're safe. Don't listen to the podcasts causing fear. Do I wear a mask and avoid close contact with others if I've been vaccinated? The answer is yes. Because as research is going on, as experts are seeing how this COVID situation is evolving, we are learning more about protection that the COVID-19 vaccines can provide under real life conditions, away from the lab. So they still need to continue protecting ourselves. So until then, it's important that we continue, doing the covering of our mouth and nose with a mask, washing our hands, and also social distancing. So if I'll not get any questions, I've asked myself questions. So maybe you can steal these ones, and maybe if there'll be others, I can combine with this. It was a brief one, so the floor is open. I think there's more learning when there's exchange and interaction. Asante.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to, before we move to the questions, I'd like to recognize the presence of our past district governor, Jeff Bamford. Thank you, PDG, for joining us this evening. We have AG Jen Katuga, thank you for being here. And a number of presidents also this evening from Kilimani being here, and a lot of other Rotarians. Raise your hand. Our type books. So the floor is open. We'll take 2 questions at a time. Okay, we shall start with Njoki Ndung'u and Shiro Sundwa, our charter president.
Thank you, President Malaki. Dr. Mark, thank you so much for taking us through the COVID vaccine. I still have a follow-up question to what you've addressed regarding the allergies, because I'd actually planned to go for one, but against like 2 doctors and a professor in research who advised against it because of my high allergy to eggs. So I'm just wondering, because I hear these vaccines are hatched in eggs or something like that. Could you please confirm this?
We just did.
Okay, and our charter president, Shiro? Shiro? Okay, as we wait for Shiro, I'll ask Margaret Thande Margaret to ask a question.
Good evening, Mr. President and Dr. Mark. I had already put my question on the forum, but my question was whether it is safe to give the vaccine to somebody who is undergoing chemotherapy or radiotherapy.
Dr. Mark, please, can you go ahead?
Okay, thank you very much for those 2 questions. The topics around COVID and the vaccine and treatment, it's a topic that evolves every day. Today, we might discuss eggs, we might discuss RNA, and tomorrow, data just shows something completely different or affirms what we've been saying. So schools of thought are many. However, from what we are getting from the manufacturers of these vaccines, are saying egg allergy is not a contraindication, meaning you can take the vaccine even if you have history of egg allergy. However, what I said was, if you have history of very bad reactions to maybe peanut or any other thing, you are susceptible to maybe more severe side effects. So that's why you should talk to your doctor before you get the vaccine. But in terms of egg, that one was sorted. The second question was, is COVID-19 safe for chemo and radiotherapy? There was a slide that I showed, and it basically, immunosuppression means people whose immunity is weak. So chemo will make your immunity weak, radiotherapy will make your immunity weak, and those vaccines were shown to be safe in such patients.
Okay, so I will read two questions from the chat. This is from Derek Msioka. Hi, Dr. Mark. That was a nice presentation. What happens if one misses the second dose or doesn't get it within the stipulated duration? The second question is from Mumbi. If you already had COVID, you're essentially developed protective immunity, or do you still need to get vaccinated?
Thank you for those questions. First question was on what happens if I miss a dose. So what they are recommending is strive to get the second dose within the stipulated schedule. So if you're supposed to get your second dose after 3 to 4 weeks for the Pfizer and Moderna, try to be within that schedule. For AstraZeneca is within 8 to 12 weeks. So the recommendation is you would rather get it late, say 14 weeks or 16 weeks after the first, than miss at all. However, they're discouraging you getting it earlier. 12 weeks, you'd rather even delay to 14 than 7 weeks or 6 weeks. For the second question, it answers my second bullet in this slide. Should someone who has COVID-19 be vaccinated? So the answer is yes. What research has shown is that once you get COVID, the disease itself, yes, you do mount an immune response, meaning you generate antibodies, you get those soldiers we were talking about, but they don't last for long. The average is 2 to 6 months maximum, meaning after that, you're still susceptible to, or you're still at risk of getting COVID again. And the sad thing with COVID, if you get severe form of COVID, it leaves scars in your lungs. So every insult, every other infection leaves your lungs worse than they were before. So it's important to get vaccinated even if you had COVID before, because right now research is saying immunity is 8 to 12 months. So we are still seeing if this means that people will be needing an annual booster or not. So it's still an evolving topic. We're still watching and waiting, but so far it's 8 to 12 months of protection once you've gotten your second dose. So in the same breath, let me just answer the first bulletin, which says, should someone who is COVID positive receive the vaccine? So the recommendation is once you've been diagnosed as COVID positive, you're supposed to isolate for the 14 recommended days. Then after that, get the vaccination. President, can I go ahead and answer the last three?
Yes, please. First, before you answer those, let's have Kirima ask his question, and then we can go to the messages, onto the ones you have there.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mark. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, the question is about variants. There are a lot of variants coming up, and what is the impact of the variants on immunity? And what do you think if we get enough vaccinations, we can stop these variants coming up?
Okay, thank you, my IPP, Kirima from Embu. Thank you for that question. So yes, there are variants that are coming up. We have one in South Africa, Brazil, and also the one that came up in the UK initially. So what we are seeing is that the vaccines that are already out are not as effective against these new variants. However, they still offer some protection. They still offer some protection, so they are not bad. They are not 0%. So they still have a role to play in keeping us away from ICU and HDU. However, that's why the world is in a panic, to try and vaccinate as many people as possible so that we get to herd immunity. Because if these variants continue spreading, then the vaccines become the more irrelevant. So I hope that answers the question. And to just shed light, we might, like the flu vaccine has a protective efficacy of 45%. So if 45% is still in the market and is still widely used to protect us from the flu vaccine, then even the already established vaccines for COVID-19 are still useful even in the new variants.
Yeah, and there's also a question here from Jennifer Mwiruri, and she's asking, is it safe to get the vaccine while undergoing dialysis, where the kidney function is 30 and below? And there's also a question in the chat. Just hold on. Someone who's raised their hand. This is Shiro, our chapter president. She's back. So Shiro, please go ahead.
Hi, I don't know if you guys can see me. I can't see myself. But my question was about, we've had two people in our immediate family who went to get their shots and immediately thereafter collapsed and died. Okay, so for one, we know that it's a son had COVID, he got sick, he passed away. So they buried him. And when the dad came back, he went for the AstraZeneca shot and he passed away. So we suspect the dad also had COVID. He just didn't know and didn't seek treatment in time. But for the other person, it's just someone who was fine. There was nothing going on with them. They just heard about the shot. They went to Nyahururu District Hospital. And once they got the shot, they passed on. So maybe you can give us just comment on that. What do you think about that? Because it's really scared our family members, and now no one wants to go and get vaccinated.
Okay, thank you for those questions. The first question was on dialysis, patients getting dialysis. And those patients fall under the vulnerable groups, immunosuppressed. So they still follow, grouped with patients who have diabetes, hypertension, comorbids. So yes, it is safe for them, and in fact, they're encouraged to get the shot. In terms of patients collapsing after the shot, so a postmortem really in this situation would have been really important and help and shine light to maybe what could have been the cause of death. Because as you know, there was also talk of clots forming after the shot, but comparing the number of people who've been vaccinated and the people who developed clots, it was insignificant. You must remember that even before the COVID vaccine came around, we still had patients who would collapse and die because of heart conditions. We still have patients who would, develop clots because of their work, maybe because of their contraceptions or because of, genetics. COVID has been shown to cause myocardial infarction, that is heart attack in layman's terms. So I would not speculate on maybe what could have happened, but postmortem really would have come in handy because it will help shine light on what could have possibly happened. But poleni sana for your loss.
So we have a question from PDG Jeff.
Yes, for the second jab, is it important that you get the same brand that you had before, or does it matter whether it's Moderna or AstraZeneca or whatever it is?
That's an interesting question that has no answer to date, meaning there's no recommendation by the WHO saying it is safe to, cross vaccinations. The recommendation is that you still continue with what you started with. So if you started with AstraZeneca, you get the second shot from AstraZeneca. Like you see, this is just me postulating. For example, the vaccine from China is made of an inactivated virus. Yet the one from Pfizer and Moderna is using RNA technology. So different mechanisms, but for the same end result. So the recommendation is still stick to what you started with. We'll still watch and see if they'll recommend otherwise.
Thank you.
Good job.
So maybe President, I can answer the last two bullets because I think the third one was also answered.
Yeah.
What can I expect at my appointment when I go for the COVID-19 vaccine? So you'll need a ID. The government is using an online platform to register all patients. So once you're registered, you'll go into where the vaccine is being injected. They'll once again confirm your details online before they inject you with the vaccine. Then they use your non-dominant hand, meaning if you're right-handed, they'll inject you on the left, or maybe your preference. It doesn't really matter. Then they will inject your arm. We are not using spirit, you know the way like normal injections where you clean the skin surface with spirit or antiseptics. No, they just clean with dry cotton wool and inject. This is because we don't know what effect those chemicals can have on the vaccine. So they're just using dry cotton wool. The last question is, can I choose which vaccine I receive? The recommendation is get what you can get soonest. This applies in places like the US where you have choices, for example. And so maybe you go to a facility and you want the Johnson & Johnson because it's a one jab, but they have Moderna. So the recommendation is get what you get the jab that's available because you never know. You can wait for 2 or 3 weeks and then you get severe form of COVID, which you have avoided. Yeah, I've answered my questions, I think. I don't know if there are any other questions on the chat.
I mean, you've covered most of them. So just I could just say, Kirima is asking, Kirima is asking if Sputnik 5 is okay. But I guess you've already touched on that. So we shall have two last questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Okay. There are no questions. That means you've answered all of them and or we feel satisfied with what you have explained to us. So we will move to the vote of thanks. And for this, unless you have anything else to add, Dr. Mark?
Nothing from me, maybe Dr. Njuki.
I've been ambushed. I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
And unless people have questions for me.
Okay, so we shall move to the vote of thanks. Just a request to those in attendance, Rotarians, Rotaractors, please drop your club name in the message box so that we can recognize you during the final toast. Thank you. For the vote of thanks, I shall request our treasurer, club treasurer, Keshi, to give the vote of thanks. Rotarian Keshi.
Thank you, Rotarian Mark, for that wonderful talk, for giving us an in-depth on the COVID vaccine. And as your intro was said, they said you were small when you were younger. Yes, you were. I can attest to high school things. Anyway, thank you for clearing some of the doubts we had in mind, for talking about the allergies for people who are undergoing radiotherapy, dialysis, diabetes. For mentioning about what happens when one skips the second dose, when to have the second dose, and if it's okay to have a different brand or not. Thank you also for talking about, you mentioned whether someone who's had COVID can also get vaccinated again. And also you talked about the age gap for receiving the vaccine. I'm hoping that even as we've been listening to Dr. Mark, that at least he's been able to convince most of us to go and take the jab. And thank you once again, Mark, and Dr. Kibe for, yes, I think I've made the name okay. Yes, for gracing us. Back to you, President.
Thank you very, very much, Keshi, and thank you, Dr. Mark, for taking time away from your honeymoon to give us this presentation quite timely. I think we owe a lot to Dr. Kibe for letting you do this. So thank you very much for both of you for being here. So for the next part of the meeting, I'll hand it over to our sitting SAA, who also happens to be our incoming president, Wilson Kamau.
Thank you, President. I also want to thank Dr. Mark for this wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for taking time off your honeymoon to give us this presentation. Much appreciated. It's now time for SAA. SAA is a session where we collect fines from members who have been misbehaving so that we use it to run the club, and also do a session for happy dollars, sad dollars. So in terms of fines, I don't have any today. I'm just in a happy mood because we finally did a handover. So we'll skip that for now. But if you feel that you want to find yourself for doing something contrary to our Rotary ways, feel free. There's a M-Pesa paybill number on the screen. Use the paybill number and the account number to send in your fine. But I'll kick it off also directly to the Happy Dollar, Sad Dollar. Happy Dollar is a session where you tell us something good has happened during the week, something that we can celebrate together. And the Sad Dollar is you can tell us something that sad has happened to you that we can empathize with you and also pray for you maybe in case. But anyway, I want also to kick off this session by giving out the first Happy Dollar. One is to the handover that happened over the weekend. It wasn't the normal handover process that we only have as a Madaraka, but it's but depending on because of this current situation, it's what we could happen. But we do hope to have another party in the days to come. So I'll give up a Happy Dollar for that, and also a Happy Dollar for today's session. Thank you, Dr. Mark, again for the presentation. So anyone else with a Happy Dollar, Sad Dollar, the floor is open. You can raise your hand, or you can also send it on the chat. Then we can also mention it out to you in this session. So the floor is open. Happy Dollar, Sad Dollar.
Hello?
Hello? Yes, we can hear you.
This is Dr. Kerema from Rotary Club of Embu. First of all, two Happy Dollar.
Okay.
Yeah, for one for the great talk by Dr. Mark. It's always great to hear from him. Actually, we're inducted into Rotary on the same day in the Rotary Club of Embu. And then the second happy is, of course, to a belated congratulations for Dr. Mark for his lecture.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rotarian. So I see here there's Nora. Nora has a Happy Dollar. Nora, go ahead. Will you tell us about it, if you don't mind?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I have one Happy Dollar. Mine is for the fully recovery of COVID that I had tested positive two weeks ago. I'm now fully back to myself. Thank you.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear. Thank you so much for that. I see also Maggie, President Maggie from Kilimani Fajiri saying she has 5 Happy Dollars for the invitation by President Malaki and for the speaker, Dr. Mark, for demystifying the vaccine for us. Quite informative session. Thank you so much, President Maggie, and karibu sana, karibu tena sana to our club meetings.
Hi, Wilson.
Hi.
Let me give my 2 Happy Dollars. Thank you, Dr. Mark and Dr. Kibe, for the very, very insightful session that you've given us today. That was very informative. And also a Happy Dollar for my mom who has joined this meeting. I'm sure this is her first Rotary meeting, and I'm glad that she was able to join. And karibu sana.
Glad to hear that. That's good. Thank you so much. Njoki, I'll see Shiro's hand is up. Shiro, go ahead. Shiro Sundra.
Hi, everybody. Mine one is a Happy Dollar to attend this meeting. I think that the speaker was excellent and we really learned a lot from you, Dr. Mark. I'm really happy about that. My second is a Sad Dollar. I get to leave this beautiful country hopefully on Saturday. So it's Kwaheri from the Osunda family.
Thank you so much, Shiro. We'll meet you. Safe journey back.
Thank you.
So, floor is still open. Any more Happy Dollar, Sad Dollar?
Can I go ahead?
Yes, Mark.
I have several happy dollars. One is for today's fellowship. Second one is for President Malaki's ambush. Thank you very much. Third one is for my wife here for helping me make these slides and prepare. The last one is for RC Madaraka for your support during our wedding. Gifts were well received. Asanteni sana, Mungu wabariki.
Karibu tena sana, Mark. And thank you for bringing your wife to our meeting. She can also be a member by the same club, different club. She's welcome.
Thank
I see, okay, sorry. I see on the chat, there's Caroline Jiru with $2 happy. Great talk, thank you, Daktari and RC Madaraka. Caroline from RC Kitengela, thank you so much for your happy dollars. Again, the floor is still open. I'd like don't close it. Any more happy dollars, $3? Oh, the quiet. So okay, President, I think people are satisfied. So I'll hand it back to you. But in case you do have a happy dollar, $3, you can also send your contributions to the M-Pesa paybill number on your screen, and we'll be happy to mention it for you. So back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, incoming President Wilson. I have a number of happy dollars. First of all, my first happy dollar is for this meeting. It's well attended. Thank you everyone for being here. Second one is to the guest speaker. Thank you, Dr. Mark, for making time for this meeting and your presentation. We've all learned a lot. Thank you very much. Another happy dollar is to the handover that was there on Saturday. It went on smoothly. So thank you for all those who worked to facilitate that. And my final happy dollar is to Njoki Ndungu. That means 3 generations of her family are listening into this meeting, which is so exciting. Thank you, Njoki, for inviting your mom and having your children with you to listen into this meeting.
Thank you.
So we'll go to the final toast. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for being here this evening and for the great attendance. So if you have a glass, please charge it. If not, place your right hand over your heart. To the Road Shark clubs of Road Shark Club of Nairobi Central, the Road Shark Club of UON Afya, the Road Shark Club of Africa Nazarene University, to the Rotary Clubs of Karen, Kilimani Alfajiri, Karengata, Embu, Kitengela, Langata. I give you, this is Rotary Club of Nairobi Madaraka. I give you Rotary and Road Shark the world over.
To Rotary and Rotaract the world over.
Well, thank you everyone. Thanks for being here.